Hello, and thank you everyone for coming. Without further ado, Marisa, thank you for accepting our invite. It is such a pleasure to have you here. And on behalf, I believe, of everyone, I would like to thank you, especially that today is going to be very unique and different because we'll be knowing and asking you how have you reached the Marisa peers that we know of today. So that's the big difference between the talks and everything that we know about your beauty, about your work, about everything. So the main question that we'll be talking about today is how have you reached up there? So thank you, and everyone, if you can give a big round of applause for Marisa. So you are the creator of Rapid Transformational Therapy, a best-selling author, and you've helped many, some of them iconic people in the world, some CEOs, Olympic athletes, and celebrities. What inspired you to start the journey of healing, and what helped you people through your hypnotherapy?
I think what inspired me was my father. My father was quite a revolutionary head teacher. He very much thought outside the box. He kind of threw away the rule book and very much did it his way. Interesting, the way he was educating children is now what people are doing. He allowed you to self-select your lessons, which was an amazing thing in the 70s. So he was an inspiration because I saw that the joy he got from having a career where he had purpose, meaning, and impact. My mother was beautiful but very unfulfilled. So, children always learn what they live. You can't help but learn what you live. And my parents are very unhappily married. And I look at them every day and think, you have to have a great career. Career with meaning it stops you feeling the pain. So that was very much where I was going. And I was very much driven to find a career. And I thought I would be like him, a teacher, but I realised I didn't want to be a teacher. That's quite funny because now I teach my method all over the world. So I sort of went in a circle and went back to teaching, but rather differently. But I wanted a job that gave me that feeling of meaning and purpose and impact. And there are very few careers where you have meaning, purpose, impact, connection, significance, where you make a difference, grow and transform, and do it for others too. But so I kind of thought I'd be a child psychologist, but actually that didn't quite work because you always have three patients, child, mother, parent, usually divorce, and that was a bit of a disaster because they're never on the same page. And then I went to work for Jane Fonda to teach aerobics just because I didn't like training to be a child psychologist. And this was way back in the 80s, and every person, including Jane, she'd be the first to admit, was bulimic, anorexic, body dysmorphic, or exercise compulsive. And they were all using aerobics to cure what is, in fact, a mental illness. Anorexia is a mental illness. And I was fascinated by how they were going at it the wrong way. And I thought, I'm going to find a way. And I found hypnosis, which was amazing. So I thought, well, this is great. I can teach aerobics for Jane Fonda all day because it was a fantastic career. And I can work with people with bulimia all night. But actually, I got so busy, I had to give up the aerobic teaching and just stick to that. But that's how I got to it. It was almost by mistake. I didn't really have a career plan. I'll go to LA, meet Jane Fonda, find hypnosis and work with anorexics. That wasn't my plan at all. But that's how it turned out. And it's been amazing ever since.
Wow, that's very interesting. So your powerful movement, I Am Enough.
Yeah.
It's inspired millions of people all over the world. So to discover your own self-belief, you have a passion for empowering those who feel different or unworthy to discover their inner confidence. What makes this mission such a powerful driving force in your personal life?
Well, I've been a therapist my entire adult life, and I love it. I think it's the best job in the world because you can do whatever you want with it. But I realized very quickly that all my clients coming in, whether that was an Olympic athlete or a movie star or even a school teacher, they all had the same thing. I'm not enough. In fact, not long ago, I got called to go work with this iconic movie star, and I was sitting in his house, and he said, who am I to play this icon? I was thinking, well, who am I to tell you how to play this icon? And we both had imposter syndrome. He was going, because he was playing an icon. He went, but I'm just somebody from nowhere. Who am I? I thought, I'm thinking, who am I to come here to your amazing mansion and tell you how to play this part? So we both had this imposter syndrome. But the interesting thing is we both did it anyway. But most of my clients, whether they were football players or doctors or a school teacher, all had the same thing, I'm not enough. And there are many, many ways I'm not enough to show up. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not interesting enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not educated enough. And it was the biggest thing that all my clients had. 80% of them had it. Some of them were, I remember once all these Victoria's Secret models turned up in a limo, and my neighbours were going, why have they come to see you? I said, well, they don't feel they're enough. But they might look like that, but they still don't think they're enough. They just couldn't believe it that they were coming in looking amazing. I said, but if looking amazing was it, we wouldn't have so many people who would want to kill themselves, or wealthy, look amazing, or are super rich. That doesn't stop you thinking you're not enough. And because I saw it so much that, if that's the cause of every issue, then surely we should be curing that. So if someone came in and said, I can't stop eating cake, I can't stop buying stuff, I can't stop cheating on my partner, that's the presenting problem. What lies beneath was always, I'm not enough, so I need more. I worked with somebody once who was a kleptomaniac, so wealthy, but she had to go and steal stuff because she felt not enough, so she had to get more, and it had to be free. If she bought it, it wasn't the same. It was like, I'm owed something, so I just go and steal lots of stuff. It's what I call the emptiness inside. And you can't fix the emptiness inside with buying stuff. You have to go back to, where does it come from? It comes from the unmet needs of children. And so I began to work on the I'm not enoughness, because then, I worked with hundreds of thousands of alcoholics. I've never met one ever who felt, I'm not enough, and I drink to numb the pain, or I drink to forget, even when they're super famous. So it was interesting that so many therapies are trying to fix what I call the presenting problem. Here I am, and I go gambling every day. But you've got to fix what is underneath, which is I'm not enough, and I need more and more and more, because when you're not enough, you always need more. And when you know you're enough, you don't. So that's how I created the I'm Enough movement. And I put it into lots of schools, because most children who are bullied, but indeed the bullies, never think they're enough.
Beautiful. I am enough. Beautiful.
Yeah,
really.
Some all my bracelets say.
Yeah. Oh, your bracelet says that. Oh, wow. Wow. I am enough. Okay, maybe I can be, that comes to my next question to you, could be a beautiful affirmation in the morning. So, and I know you always make sure to start your day with the daily affirmation, because that's what you always talk about, daily affirmation is a key. So how does that help you navigate through the tough moments or the difficult times or any setbacks in life? And do you think that these days, the difficult days, are harder for people to practice gratitude in their daily lives on such days? And is there any affirmation that you recommend to our audience today?
Yeah, we're all going to have tough days. We're all going to deal with bereavement and loss, and kids who look at you and say, everyone else's parent is better than you, and commute. So there's no life without toughness. I had a client actually who lived on a desert island filming for 2 years, and his life was idyllic. And every day his children got up dressed as fairies, traipsed through the forest. When they moved back to New York, one of them wanted to kill herself because she couldn't cope with reality. So even a perfect life doesn't equip you for reality. And so what you have to say is, I have phenomenal coping skills. You can't go through life and say, I'm not going to meet any stress. Even monks, even people who live in isolation are stressed, because what stresses us is our thinking. We're always going to have traffic. And so an affirmation is, I have phenomenal coping skills. I can cope with anything. This goes over my head. I can deal with traffic. I can deal with challenges. A couple of years ago, my husband and I were driving to San Diego. Somebody lent me a white Porsche, and I was going to give a talk, and he was going, oh my God, the traffic is horrible. I said, you know what, darling? This is someone's fantasy dream come true. We're being paid a lot of money to go to San Diego in a white Porsche, to give this talk. We've been given a penthouse, this restaurant, I've forgotten what it was called. It was an island where Marilyn Monroe went. Anyway, they made a whole dinner for me. I said, this is a fantasy. So when you have a problem, you have to ask yourself a question. Would someone in the world go, your problem? That's my fantasy dream. Because I'd love a kid to smear peanut butter on the fridge. I'd love a husband to leave his pants on the floor. I'd love to have to commute to a job. So if you can say, is it someone's fantasy, then you think, okay, it's all relative. What would you have given 20 years ago for that problem anyway? But I think the biggest thing is to get into that gratitude, to wake up and go, I love my life. I love my sheets. I love my little cats jumping on the bed. I love my first cup of tea. I love the fact I wake up to bird song. And if you can train your brain to go, I love the smell of the shower, Joe, little simple things. If you can go, oh my God, this first cup of tea is sensational. You train your brain to look for good things everywhere you go. So when you get big things, then it's like Christmas Day every day. So the best thing to do when you wake up is to something you love. I love my sheets. I love hearing my kids giggling down the hall. If you can wake up and the first thing you do is go, I'm so glad for something, then you get into that what I call an aptitude for gratitude.
The things that we take for granted, the things that we don't even consider because they're petty and small. So these are the things that we can actually be thankful and grateful for and resonate on it.
Yeah, and most people will tell you it's never the big things. It is getting into clean sheets, having a bath, having a friend to come and talk to you. It's never the big things that feel great. It's the little everyday things.
Beautiful. So you spend so much of your time, your effort, your energy in helping people heal, find confidence, and shift their mindsets. So that must take an overwhelming amount of emotional and mental strength on yourself. So how do you replenish your own power after giving so much of yourself to the others?
I've trained 20,000 therapists all over the world, and everyone says that, you give so much. But actually, that's not true, because for everything I give, I get back. If I start the day and I'm this cup, and I tip a bit out for my clients and my daughter and my husband, but while I'm emptying my cup, they're filling it up. So I never have an empty cup, because although I give a lot, I get so much back. I love my job. I don't think I'll ever retire. So when you give and receive, people say, oh, it must be so draining. It's like, no, I don't have to get up at 8 o'clock and commute to the city and stand on the stockroom floor all day. I get to work from home. It's fantastic. I don't even wear any shoes. I can sit at my desk doing Zooms all over the world and with my cats at my feet with the air conditioning on. So I think I have a very privileged life. But again, it's how you feel about it. If you go, oh my God, it's hell, dealing with all these people with all their problems, and I'm absorbing it. If you believe that, I've never believed I absorb clients' problems. I always believe the day they come to me is the day they get better. And of course, I've heard some horrifying stuff, but as long as you think the day they come to me is the day it gets better, then you're not absorbing anything. You're actually giving back a nice energy.
That's amazing. So basically, being a mother and a powerhouse in your own field requires immense also balance for yourself. And so how have you managed to give so much to both your family and your career without burning out in the process?
Well, again, I have as a woman, being a therapist is probably one of the best jobs in the world. I work from home. I can take a day off. I never have to say to my boss, hey, my daughter's got to go to the dentist. There are very few jobs that are really kind and where you can say, I start at 11, I finish at 2. I work 3 days a week or 4 days a week. And if I don't want to go to work because my kid's sick, I can cancel all my clients. When I was actually giving birth to my daughter, I was on the phone in the hospital cancelling all my clients for that day. So I'm having a baby, so I'm cancelling everyone today. And so again, it's a very privileged career. I see women who go, I have to get up at 6, I go to the city, I work in a bank, my kid's in daycare, then I come home. One of the reasons I began to train people in my therapy is because for women, and men too, but it's such a great job. Because there's hardly any jobs that say 3 hours a day, maybe 4, work from home, see clients all over the world on Zoom. And I've always felt I had a very lucky time, because I can't imagine, standing on a shop floor, working running a restaurant, the stress that must be involved. I'm sitting down, having an easy time, but also it's a really lovely career. In the Quran it says if you change one person's life, that's the same as changing everyone's life. And I love the fact the Quran says that, because it's true. So I can go to bed and think, wow, someone's having a better life because of a skill I possess. So I've always found it very easy.
In these moments, would you think, I mean, do you turn to any kind of mentorship or guidance, or is there any person in your life that is sort of an anchor in such difficult situations? Or
Well, first of all, I don't find it difficult. People do come in and tell me really sad stories. But with every client that comes in with this, so there's a solution, because it's never what happened, it's how you feel about what happened. I was talking about I'm just finishing writing a book. In fact, I finished it this week. And I was writing about my stepfather who he never gave my mother a card because he couldn't sign anything, because when he was at school, he was left-handed. And the word for left-handed is sinister, sinestra, it means evil. So in the 30s, they would hit him, beat him, and eventually they tied his hand to his leg, and they made him write with his right hand. And then they said, your writing is disgusting. So that was his story. I have horrible handwriting and I can't sign a check. And when we found all of that out, he now has a choice. I should be angry for the rest of my life. Or I could say this: they took so much from me, and I'm not going to let them take another thing. They took my joy, my trust, my childhood. But you still can choose. Shall I let them take another thing, or go, no, today I'm going to write horribly, not even care. I'm going to sign in a scribble and go, I don't care what it looks like. So even when it's terrible, you always have a choice. If someone took from you your innocence and your freedom, you still can choose. Today I can say, well, enough. The best revenge is to be happy. So you can always choose. That was terrible. But the best revenge is to live your best life and go, I won't let them have any more space in my head. So, we think human beings are fragile, but they're not. They're resilient. If you think what our grandparents went through, they didn't have air conditioning. They had 12 children. Some of them died. And we think we're fragile, but we're not. We're really resilient. We just don't know it.
beautiful. In one of your videos, you shared a simple yet powerful message. You said, if you don't like your reality, change your words. What importance do you think our internal dialogue has in shaping our reality?
Well, everything, because if this was a ladder, if you imagine my fingers are a ladder, you think a thought. And when you think a thought, you feel a feeling. And then your feelings decide your behavior. So your thoughts create your feelings, and your feelings create your behavior. So it kind of goes like this: I'm not enough, therefore I feel terrible, I feel sad or angry or depressed or blocked. So that's the feeling, and the behavior is, well, no point in applying for that job or asking that person out because I'm not enough. So it's a thought, feeling, behavior, then you justify it with a thought. It's called confirmation bias. I'm no good with talking to people, so I won't talk to anyone. So I don't go out because I'm no good at talking to people. It's a loop. And if you just flip the loop and go, well, I am enough, well, then you feel brave, you feel motivated, you feel pretty good. And then you'll go for that job, go for that interview, ask for that promotion because, here's the loop, I'm enough. So our thoughts create our feelings create our actions and behaviors. And a lot of therapy is trying to change the feeling or the behavior, but you just go back to the thought. Because a thought is a thought, and if you stop thinking it, it's not there anymore. So you can think anything, but it's not. If you stop thinking it, it doesn't exist. Or if you flip it, it doesn't exist. And a belief is nothing more than a thought you think a lot. So my grandmother would always say to me, successful women can't find a husband. Men don't like. That was true in her generation. You'll never find love after at 35. You're finished. Well, that was true, but it's not true for me. So when someone says it, you have to ask yourself a question: is this true? And even if it's true for them, is it true for me? Does it have to be true for me? I know Stella McCartney very well, and she's been married to the same man. She's got 4 children. She's got an amazing career. You can always find someone who goes, oh, there's someone who's got everything. I was on Richard Branson's island last year, and he's a man he's been happily married to his wife, who's older than him, by the way, for, 50 years now. He really enjoys his money. He shares it. He's very active. And you think, well, there's someone who's defying a belief. So if you have a belief, because if you don't like your reality, go back and think, what am I thinking? Our words shape our reality. I'm no good. I can't do that. It's too hard. It's too difficult. It's too painful. And a good thing to say is, instead of saying it's hard, say it's unfamiliar. You know, years ago, this very famous film director came to see me. I mean, he was so famous. And he sat down and he was telling me his story. He was in fact, he was almost suicidal. And I happened to say to him, do you know, one of my happiest memories, my father took me to this movie of yours. And he went, it was terrible. I don't know how it got an Oscar. It was awful. I said, what about the other one? That was even worse. There were no good nominations that year, you see. Yeah. In each year he got an Oscar, there were no good nominations. I said, oh, you can't accept praise. That's your problem. No wonder you want to kill yourself, because you cannot accept praise. And his story was, he was born, clearly he was very gay as a young man. He was a film director, and his father just couldn't cope with his gay son. The father was a coal miner. He didn't know what to do with his sons. He would always say, they must have swapped the babies. Your mother must have had an affair. And the father was very critical. And if he said, do you like my films? He would, no, they're rubbish, rubbish. And even on his death, he said, are you proud of me, Dad? He went, for what? Making movies? That's not work. You've never done a day's work in your life. So the father died, never having praised his son. And so when I started to tell him about these movies, he couldn't accept praise, because it was, one thing, it was unfamiliar. And I said, you know, it's really simple. This is not hard, it's unfamiliar. I want you to say, I love my films. And he couldn't say it. I said, but eventually he said it, and he said it again. He said, this is very hard. I said, no, it's not hard. It's putting a contact lens in your eye is hard. If you do it every day, doesn't it become easy? It's simply unfamiliar. So if you say it's hard for me to write a book, write that program, talk to clients, it's hard for me to let in praise, it's hard for me to go to the gym, say, no, it's just unfamiliar. Because one of the things about the brain that is so vexing is it only wants to go back to what it knows. That's how you survive on the planet. You know, if you have a 2-year-old child, they won't do anything they don't know. I don't like that because I've never had it before. And that's what starts eating poisonous berries. So our brain is coded to like to go back to what is familiar, unknown and comfortable, while avoiding what is unfamiliar, unknown and uncomfortable. But you can get around that by going, well, I'm going to make this familiar. I'm going to make doing the plank, accepting praise, taking sugar out of my coffee familiar. And if you say that, you can make anything familiar. And once you've done it, you'll go back to it all the time.
Beautiful. You have truly transformed your life to what it is now, what it is today as we speak. So what I, and I'm sure all the audience here, would like to hear, would love to know, what led to the flip that made you the Marisa peer we know of today? Was there a turning point in your journey that led to this complete transformation?
You know, I think it's a gradual thing. So when I was growing up, my father was my teacher, which I would never recommend to any kid to go to their father's school. My mother was very beautiful and way ahead of her time. And I always felt a bit like a freak because I just felt not enough, which is why I created the Not Enough. Now I'm very glad that happened, because you have to know what it's like to feel not enough, to be able to help other people also feel not enough. But one day I realized that when I was at school, I felt like a freak. My father was my head teacher. My mother was wearing around little mini skirts. No one else had a mother like that. And she was having an affair with a next door neighbor. It was all very strange. But what I realized is I took it with me. I left home, I went to college, and I still felt like that kid. And that's when we take it with us. All these years later, we go, I still feel like an idiot. If you look at, I know someone like Amy Winehouse or Whitney Houston, you can see that they took it with them. Michael Jackson, they would still say, I still feel inside like that tortured kid. I still feel ugly, stupid, unattractive. I still feel poor. I still keep turning off the lights and worrying about the air conditioning, even though I know I've got a lot of money. So we take it with us. And my turning point was realizing, oh, this came from my childhood, which was a bit crazy, but now I'm doing it. I'm keeping it going. When I recognized that, I was able to say, well, I don't have to do that anymore. So that was a real turning point, looking at how I continued the feelings I felt as a child. But for one reason, they were familiar to me. And then I thought, well, I'm going to make them unfamiliar. And I'm very glad I did.
Wow. Wow. Seriously. So in one of your best-selling books, Ultimate Confidence, I'm sure you're very aware, it's your book, you said not letting in criticism and insults is one of the most beneficial things you can do to boost your self-esteem.
That's true.
So in your journey, how did you have moments of self-doubt where you had to rebuild your confidence, and how did you go about it? I'm very interested to know.
You know, I don't know how many of you saw Demi Moore recently getting an Oscar, and she said, I was told I would only ever be a popcorn actress. I would never be enough. And that was the thing somebody told her, and she let it in. Someone said to Elizabeth Taylor, you can be an actress, you'll never be a movie star. She didn't let it in. She was very good. And someone said to Meryl Streep, Meryl, let me help you out here, darling. You're not beautiful, you'll never make it. And she said, that's your opinion. In a sea of opinions, you know what? I'm going to find another opinion. And she did. So you will always have someone who's critical and mean and harsh, but you have a choice to let it in or not. And the choice is to understand that people who are critical always have the most criticism reserved for themselves. They reflect out to you their own dissatisfaction. Somebody who would say to you, oh, you look horrible in that, or I hated your book, or oh, that was terrible, that talk you gave was so dreadful. People who say that are unhappy with themselves, and they express out their unhappiness. A happy person would say, well, darling, you did your best. I thought it was quite nice. Yes, you got a few words wrong, but who cares? So the way you don't let in criticism is you understand the critic is unhappy, and they're reflecting it to me, and I have a choice. Shall I let it in or not let it in? I say, that's an unhappy person.
Very interesting. So we need to differentiate.
Sorry?
So we need to differentiate.
Yeah, differentiate. Well, I mean, constructive criticism is great, but if someone is mean and critical and horrible, you have to think, well, who wakes up and says, I know, I'm having a lovely life. I think I'll go online and troll somebody. I mean, no one does that who's happy. What a waste of energy. I'm going to go online and I'm going to send horrible messages to somebody. And some of my clients who are famous, they, you know, every day I go and I read all the horrible comments. I'm like, why? Why would you read all the horrible comments? Just delete them. Have your agent read them. Don't look at them. In fact, Brené Brown gives a talk about how her agent said, don't read the comments. And she did. And she said, I was so depressed. I sat and watched Downton Abbey and ate ice cream all day. And then at the end, I realized, who are you to criticize me? Have you written a best-selling book? Are you doing the research? No. So she actually came back from it. But her agent said, don't read them. But she read them. So you have to not, you know, if you get negative comments, don't read them, delete them, laugh at them. Find a way to not let them in.
Laugh at them. I like that.
Yeah, laugh at them.
Yeah, just make fun of, like, you know.
And feel sorry for the critic, because there's never been a statue erected to a great critic.
Thanks. So you have inspired thousands of people across the globe to set goals, which is goals for your life, and to speak them into actual existence. So for our incredible group here today, how would you advise, or how would you think that, how would we set our goals on a personal and on a professional level, in your opinion?
Make your goals massive. You know, don't have little goals. I'm going to find a parking space. Don't do that. You know, have huge goals, because the brain is a goal-seeking mechanism. But the brain, whatever you focus on, starts to move towards it. It's like if you're skiing and you focus on an exit ramp, you'll go there. So you should always have big goals. So when people say, oh, you know, I didn't want to go to this lunch and they cancelled, and I said, wow, I visualize that. Well, that's good. Then do more and more and more. So have big goals. And you could have 3 goals. You can have a career goal. I'm going to get a promotion. I'm going to have my own business. You can have a personal goal. I'm going to go to the gym. So before you go for any goal, spend just a little time every day saying the magic words. I'm worth it. I deserve it. I'm worthy of it, I'm deserving of it, that's it. But over and over again, because of that repetition. And as you do it, 5 things will happen. Some people say, no, I feel very tearful when I do that. Others say, I feel actually quite angry. I don't believe it. Others will say, you know, I feel scared. I'm scared of change, which is, some people say, well, it's just silly old woo, but it's not. Silly old woo is quantum physics that says, the most reliable science in the world says this. If you can change your vibrational body, your energetic body, not only can you change you can change people around you. So if you want goals, you have to work on your energetic vibration, which does sound weird, but it's not. It's like, when I believe I'm worth it, you'll believe I'm worth it too. And if I believe I'm not, you won't believe I am either. So work first on I'm worth it, I deserve it, And as you do that, go on to step 2. What do I want? What does it look like? What does it require of me? And then you go to step 3, which is what I call do it. But you can only do step 3 if you've first done step 1. So the goal of, I want my own business, or I want to be a phenomenal coach. You have to do all of those 3 things, and for love as well, because otherwise you'll end up rejecting it. For fitness, not so much. People say, I bought a gym. I never went to the gym. I couldn't stand doing all those sit-ups and lunges. It was so boring. So you have to be very clear. Anything you want to say yes to will require you to say no. If you want a six-pack that you can bounce the ball off, you're going to have to say yes to lots of working out, no carbs. It's not as easy as it looks. Anything you require to say yes to, and you're going to have to say no to something as well.
So we'll have to really work for it, basically. So would you recommend that we write it down?
Oh, yes, write it down. And write it not as in the future. There's something I wrote in my book called If, When, As. So if you go, if I find love, already you don't believe it, because you would never go if. You'd never go, if I have lunch, if I get home tonight. So don't do if, because if is a doubt. And when is a future word. When I find love. So you have to say as love comes to me, as success comes to me. So when you write it out, you must write it in the present. Here's one of the rules of the mind. It doesn't future pace at all. When people say next year, I'm going to have a beach body, and next year's like, I still haven't got one yet, but maybe next year, and next year. Next year, everything will be great. It's like saying to a child who's bullied or someone who's depressed, next year, you'll be okay. The brain doesn't know what next year is. It only knows now. So when you're writing out your goal, even though it doesn't make sense, you have to say, I am phenomenally successful now, even right now. I'm attracting the most wonderful love of my life right now. My body is healing now. Because the minute you say later or next year, when you get on a plane with your kid and they go, we're there now. The minute you take off, you're like 5 minutes into the flight, they go, we're there? And you go, no, we've got another 8 hours to go. Or you go on a drive from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, and as you leave the drive, they go, we're there. Because children's brains can't future pace, but the brain cannot future pace. So you have to do now. It only responds to words that make a picture. So if you say, I feel all right, that there's no picture. So you have to have a picture. There's an expression called every day. Who's heard this expression, every day and every day I'm getting better and better? Anyone heard that? Raise your hand. But better and better at what? What is the picture? You could get better and better at having a headache and not going to work. So unless it makes a picture, your brain doesn't know it. So when you say, I'm not bad, I'm all right, even I want more money, well, here's $5, but that's not what you wanted. I used to live in Notting Hill, and I had a friend who lived in a basement, and there was quite a famous rock star who lived there, and every day she'd go, I want that guy, I want that guy. And one day, it wasn't that surprising because he took a lot of drugs. He went to the wrong basement, her basement, and she definitely spent the night with that guy, but she never heard from him again. I said, but that's what you said. You didn't say, he's going to look at me, our worlds go together forever. He said, I want that guy. And you had that guy for one night, but you could have had him forever if you just stated a little more clearly, when he looks at me, our worlds collide. He falls in love with my very soul. We're together forever. So you didn't say anything. You just said, I want. There was a song called I Want that guy. So you'd sing it every time you saw him.
So you want to be more specific.
You've got to be very specific about what you want. I want love. Who with? What? For how long? I want money. How much and what for? It's no good saying I'm going to be a millionaire. Money's going to fall out of the shower. You have to say, I will become a millionaire by creating an amazing product that the world loves. And what is the product? If you can be clear. I know Sarah Blakely very well, who created Spanx. And when she rang Bloomingdale's and said, hey, I've got a great product, they went, no, we only buy from suppliers. Put the phone down, she called them again and again. Then one day she said, if you saw my product, you would sell more clothes. So they went, okay, well, you can have one shot. Come in, fly to Chicago. You got one chance. And she flew in and she flew out with a contract. But she had to call them a lot. And she had to be very clear. I'm going to ring up Bloomingdale's every day. And they'll hang up. I'm going to keep going. So that's another thing about your goals. Present tense. Make sure it makes a picture. Make the picture vivid and exciting and real, which is what Olympic athletes do when they want to break a record. And you can't quit the first time you hear no. You've got to be a big rubber ball and bounce back. And if you do all of those things, which is only 4, not only will you go to your goals will actually come to you. But it's a system. And, manifesting is, I'm going to sit at home and go, I'm a millionaire. I mean, that's not going to work. But if you go out and work for it, it will.
Very interesting to know basics of manifest, especially with the word manifesting now. It's such a trend. Yeah. You just write the word manifest in any website, or you find it all over. So to actually know the true meaning of manifesting, how to actually manifest, is beautiful.
I mean, the biggest step by far is I'm worth it. If you don't do that step, you might as well not bother. You have to know you're worth it. And then you have to be willing to work really, really. I could say I'm manifesting a new book, which I am, but I'm sitting at home writing that book, and it's quite solitary. I sometimes do 5 hours. I think, I've got 3 pages in 5 hours. That's not very good, but it is good. But, you can't just manifest a book deal. You have to write it. It has to be good. Then you've got to edit it, and then you've got to edit it again, and then you've got to do all the publicity tools. And the minute everything goes, have you got another one? Okay, another one, yes. But so manifesting requires I'm worth it. It requires hard work. But also, you can't manifest from a place of scarcity. So if you're living in a scarcity mindset where, you can't throw away old food or old makeup or old clothes, and you keep stuff, then you're living in scarcity. If you have that belief of, oh my God, this is not very good, I spent a month on this chapter and it's terrible, or no one's going to like this, you're living in a scarcity. And scarcity is the opposite of manifesting. So you've got to keep looking at your thoughts and go, that's a scarcity thought, I'm going to delete it. That's not a good thought, I'm going to get rid of it.
Beautiful. So you're celebrated for your work and the contributions you've made to the world of therapy. But what is something no one knows about yourself, something that would surprise those who have followed you for years?
Well, I used to be very insecure. I never could have imagined the life I have today as the life I have. So, and something else might surprise you is that a lot of my clients are very successful, like Sarah Blakely. And I realized that people who make it, you have 3 ways of being rich and famous and successful. One is to inherit it. You could inherit your parents' business and make a lot of money, but that's quite rare. And if you don't think you're worth it, you're going to get rid of it all. I just worked with someone who inherited $7 billion and got rid of half of it immediately because he didn't have any sense of I earned this or I'm worth it. So the first way to make money is, of course, to inherit it. The second way is to be like Steve Jobs and invent something, but that's really hard work. The third way is take something out there and improve it. So I looked at people. Sarah Blakely did not invent shape. It's been around since the 50s, but she improved it. Lululemon did not invent little black stretchy leggings, but she certainly invented how to sell them for 10 times the price. Better quality. Starbucks didn't invent coffee. What they invented was how to make them walk down the street holding it in their hands, which 50 years ago, no one did that. And I looked at all these people who took a product and improved it. And I thought, you know what? Therapy is very old-fashioned. It has a very weird promise. Turn up with your problem every Tuesday at 4 o'clock for 5 years. And you may or may not get better. And I thought, imagine going to ER and saying, hey, I've broken my ankle. I know we've got to have a relationship first, and we're going to have to come in every week, and then I might get better. So I looked at my clients who made it by changing an existing product. And I thought therapy should be updated. So that's what I did. I thought, I'm going to change it. And I did the same thing with coaching, because the message is very odd. It says, bring me your pain, and you may or may not get better. Imagine going to a dentist and they said, well, come every Tuesday at 11, and after a while I might take out that infected tooth, but then again I might not. Imagine going to a chiropractor. You see, every healing modality, the chiropractor, the dentist, the doctor says, turn up, and you'll leave better than you turned up, except for therapy, which says turn up, and it's a long journey. And I thought, well, it should be the same as going to ER. You should turn up with pain and have someone say, I'm going to remove that pain. I'm going to help you remove the pain. So that's probably what you didn't know, that I learned that method from other successful people. Take something that's already there, improve it, and that's how you become successful. Go out on a limb and say, that's very old-fashioned, or the message isn't quite right. And that's what you do, And I met someone, it sounds a bit gross, but I met this man. He had 3 daughters and a wife. So forgive me, it's a bit vulgar, but he noticed that their sanitary ware leaked all the time. And he thought, well, this is silly. So he invented wings. He got his daughters to wear clay in their underwear, realized where they leaked the most, and created sanitary wear with wings and became a billionaire. But he took a product that was already there but was failing and made it better. And then Pampers copied that by also putting clay in the different parts of the nappy, because boys leak in different areas to girls. So that's the trick. Find something out there and think, hey, could I improve this? Could I make this better? And the answer is you definitely could. There's so many things that you could improve on. And that's the way to make it. Don't invent something. And we're not going to inherit it, but we can improve anything. I mean, that's what happens in makeup, in sportswear, in gyms, in homes, interior design. There's always something you can improve on. And that's the way to make it in life.
Thank you very much for talking about such intimate topics and talking about your personal life. So, thank you very much.